We have Bill Brown here with us, or he will be shortly. He's a retired civil engineer, a technician specializing in engineering, site plan design, layout, utility designer for over 35 years. His engineering expertise has helped him in formulating a master plan design layout of the Giza Plateau in Egypt, showing how tombs and temples may have been located on the ground. He's been instrumental in decoding and bringing forth the ancient secrets of Gaza and the Egyptian pyramids. Giza, I guess, Giza. He was personally interviewed on site at Giza in Egypt in March of 2006 by the USA National Geographic's film TV crew, which has now been shown on TV numerous times internationally since 2007, and the Discovery Channel TV show has also shown some of his research information discoveries about Giza. Now, most of us went to school and learned about the Giza Plateau, the three pyramids, Khufu, Orion's belt and the alignment and stuff like that. And, and that was it. And then we were off to King Tut's tomb, which was much more exciting because there were treasures there and all sorts of stuff like that. And, when I went to school, that was basically the foundational information that was on the Giza Plateau in my textbooks. And then many years later, when I taught school, that was what the history books said. Basically, they talked about the three pyramids on the Giza Plateau, hiccuping, how famous they were. The capstone was off the big one. And the Sphinx was there, and then they went off to King Tut's tomb, which, of course, I was fascinated with because of all the gold and everything. And then when my son went to school, and now we're spanning almost 40 years here, 30-some, my son got the same garbage thrown at him. And until I saw Bill's material, I kind of wasn't real sure if there had been any headway made, if there were any new things going on. It was really rather befuddling to me that, suddenly this man is talking about things that I hadn't heard about, I hadn't read about. And it really was an eye-opener for me to realize that this man who has been to the Giza Plateau 55 or so times in the last few years, I think. I wish I could scroll through my material fast enough to seem like I know this seamlessly, but I don't. He's been to the Giza Plateau a lot of times, and over 52 times in the last decade or so, and he has done amazing research there. And of course, the Egyptian government, for reasons of their own, have sort of not permitted information to seep out. Now, I mean, I'm not really a conspiracy theorist exactly, but I keep running up against conspiracies right, left, up, and down these days. So I am sort of sitting back and saying, oh darn, here's yet another one. He is used, and this is something I have often wondered, he has used ground penetrating radar all around the Giza Plateau and around the Sphinx especially. There's material on the star maps that he has drawn, and he has used geometric analyzations, let's call them. I can't explain the geometrics he's used, but he's used sacred geometry, and he has configured literally star maps that he could lay out on the Giza Plateau that pinpointed pyramids and temples and all sorts of amazing stuff. And I took a look at the material and I said, why haven't I heard about this? Why is this not written up in textbooks or papers or whatever? And the further I went into it, and of course, those of you who know me that know that I have worked with geometric shapes and doing the mandalas that I've done. And So I'm very familiar with the patterns, and he talks about how he has really, through his research, uh, sort of opened up the door for a tremendous amount of the ancient mysteries that are hidden in Egypt. And it's kind of exciting to realize, to know that we haven't uncovered all of the ancient mysteries that are there. And it's just fascinating to look at his maps, and let me see if I can pull his website up. Um, I'm his he has a lot of websites, and one of them just deals with the geometrics, which we're going to be dealing with in the back, in the second half of the show. If he makes it on, I'm pretty sure he's trying desperately to get in, but he has been working on creating a Giza guided tour mapping program to set out it appears that it's almost like a walking tour. He calls it a perfect ground tomb alignment match, can now be used to define a celestial star guide to ground tour guide route layout pattern. So he's taken star maps, he's laid them out on the Giza Plateau, applying all sorts of formulas that are absolutely horrifyingly beyond my understanding. 2 master's degrees did not equip me to understand the calculations that he has put into all of this, but of course, being as expert as he is in his field, it was a piece of cake for him to see the correlation between the angles and stuff like that, which he did brilliantly. And he has laid this all out, and it appears that the Giza Plateau, what we see, is only a very small amount of what is actually there, and the ground penetrating radar has discovered and discovered. My God, it's just an amazing amount of archaeological digs that could be done with his map, and he has been able to test out his map by doing digs in a number of different places, and he's dead on. He's found so many new structures that are beneath the surface, and yet the Egyptian government either doesn't let him dig or doesn't acknowledge some of the discoveries that he has made. And it just is fascinating to me to see how we can walk away from history because we think we know it all, and then we have to come back and be reminded that history is like an onion, and you uncover layer after layer after layer after layer. Hi, Bill, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
I was running out of your material, so I'm really glad you're here.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was talking about how the history of Egypt has been portrayed so ineffectively when I was a child, when I taught school, when my son went to school. It's the same old, and it still today is. And yet the Giza Plateau is a wealth of knowledge that we haven't even plumbed the surface or cracked the surface of, actually.
That's right. I've cracked a little bit of it.
Tell me, I did talk a little about how the large pyramid was certainly not a tomb, and that it was much more. And I was explaining how you have created this star map, literally, that you've overlaid on the Giza Plateau. Where did you get the idea that this could be done?
Well, intuition.
Wow.
I have a good connection with my inner self, and I started having memories of what we might call past lives, but I think it's just DNA recall.
Okay.
And in 1997, I kind of like woke up to the idea of some past life things, and I contacted various people that did what they call channeling, but it helped me open up to my own self. And so what I decided to do was to enter the halls of record, mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up in Egypt in 2003, and being in the energy field of the area, we might say the Great Pyramid, but I want to give credit to all three because I think it's the overlapping energies of all three resonance that helped resonate with me, and I just started to remember more and more. And I just started going back in 2004 and several times. And after that, I ended up just making it a lifetime goal to find out more about myself. And as I did, I started remembering some concepts, and the stars just ended up being a part of it. And so, after 10 years of research and thousands of um, investigations and what I call trial runs using sky maps, which ultimately started with Robert Bauval's concept of the Orion Belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that there was more to it than just the apex of three pyramids. And so I started to investigate a broader um, group of constellations. And when I did that, I just, as a site plan engineer all my life, 35 years, I have an eye for seeing ground features, and using topographical maps and overlay maps. I started putting one on top of the other, and I found that no matter which star system that I used associated around Orion, that certain ground points kept appearing and being matched by different star systems, but the same spots kept showing up. And so I just continued working different concepts until a couple of months ago, one map just appeared to be the perfect match. And so that's what you've seen that I've sent to you.
Yeah, you did an article in a magazine, and
Yes.
what is the magazine? I want to put at least the name of the magazine out there in the issue so they can go look at it.
Okay, it's Ancient Mysteries and Advanced Archaeological Review,
Uh-huh.
and it was the September 2016 edition. It's the front cover of the magazine, says Tomb of Osiris is found,
Mm-hmm.
and it contains an 11-page article. It's the feature article of the magazine that talks about the Tomb of Osiris.
I strongly urge people to go find that article because it is mind-boggling and eye-opening. And now the Tomb of Osiris was a myth supposedly, and yet you have found it, or is it a replica, or have you found the actual tomb? Has the tomb been
Well,
found?
well, it has been found. I've been down inside it. It's not open to the general public normally, but if you have a good spiritual guide, Egyptian guide, they can take you into certain places like that. And I did get to go down. And when I did go down, I went all the way down to the third level. I started having memory recalls, and all I want to do was get out.
Oh my.
Yeah. When I visited the Great Pyramid many times, and I would go into the King's Chamber, a lot of times with some metaphysical groups, I would have very unusual experiences, and it kept opening my portal or my third eye, and I kept being able to see different things. So when I got to the Tomb of Osiris, which took me about 7 years to be able to get into it. But it was the perfect timing, like everything else. When the right time is there, then you're ready for it. Then
Mhm.
you can open up to what you're actually there for. And what I was trying to discover, which I have through all of my archaeological research, and based on 2006, I was a part of a group that did multiple ground penetrating radar testing at the Giza Plateau. And I was instrumental in a private research in which they did a GPR scan of the entire Sphinx Causeway from the um, mortuary temple of the second pyramid all the way down to the backside of the Sphinx. And we were able to pick up down to 30, 10 meters and beyond 20 meters and pick up some anomaly areas. We can't call them tombs because I haven't been inside them, but all of my research has led us to an understanding that there are more tombs and more areas under the Sphinx Causeway than the Egyptians want you to know about.
Yeah, I've done some reading on that, and they say that there are some huge cavernous chambers down there. I think that the one thing that fascinated me was that, especially even in the tomb of Osiris, that's the first time I have ever seen a staircase in a tomb of any sort.
Okay. Yes,
Um,
it's
I,
there.
no, I'm sure it is. It's
Yes.
just that in all of the excavations, in the Valley of the Kings and stuff like that, um, I don't recall seeing any staircases, and yet in the Tomb of Osiris, there's a staircase.
Yes. Yes.
And the sarcophagus, I will call them sarcophaguses, but I don't. And one thing that you've made very clear that these tombs, the pyramids, were absolutely not burial chambers. And you can
No.
tick off a ton of different reasons. You want to give them some of the reasons why they weren't burial chambers?
Well, the purpose of the ancient Egyptian belief system was about the belief that of immortality and that there was no death, and that these um, were devices all over the world, but we're going to just talk about Giza here.
Mm-hmm.
These devices are initiation chambers for the adept to take himself to the next level, which I have done numerous times at Giza. And you're able to go into another dimension beyond your 3D physicality and realize that there really is something else out there. And that these were areas all over, up and down the Nile River in which I've taken the tours and gone to all of the temples, and they're like a stepping stone or a classroom from grade school all the way through college. And when you get to Giza, you have a master's degree. And with that master's degree, you're able to use that knowledge specifically for you and to go into these chambers. The Great Pyramid is great. The second pyramid is different, and the third pyramid is even more different. They all have their own, what I call a frequency level. And as you raise and lower your frequency, you're able to make a connection with these mechanical devices, as I call them. And you're able to experience beyond 3D. And, I could write a book, and I probably will,
I think it's a
about
good idea.
the experiences. But I want to talk about one particular one. And I had a good friend that I'm not sure I'm supposed to say his name, but I think a lot of people may know Dr. J.J. Hurtak.
Mm-hmm.
And he explained some things about these rooms. When you walk in 3D consciousness, it's just a stone wall. It's just, it's very beautiful. But if you're able to move into a higher vibration, which is what the purpose was, you're able to see something a little bit different. And he indicated that he was able to see actual markings on paintings on the walls, but they're at a much higher level of um,
Vibration.
yes, vibration. And so, if you've ever read the material called the raw material, material RA, they speak of about a person that supposedly built the Great Pyramid out of sheer will, just
Mm-hmm.
into place from the seventh dimension. And so I found myself not any different than most people, but maybe privileged to remember that I've been able to go to the fifth and sixth dimension and be able to see some of these things on higher levels. So I would say that they're not for tombs, but for you have to basically move out of 3D, which is a death experience, in order to get into another dimension. So you could call it a tomb from that kind of a context, but not for physically burying a body there.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on it from
Well,
personal experiences.
well, and they also have no hieroglyphs or any paintings to help whoever it was dying, get through.
Right, right,
There's no books of the dead there. There's no artifacts there. I mean, and the chamber, at least in the Great Pyramid, they go up instead of down, and so there's nothing really to say that they were tombs, except historians who didn't know what else to call them.
right.
And
If they were, they were taken out a long time ago.
I would think so.
The tomb robber theory.
Now, in the tomb of Osiris, aren't the sarcophaguses exceedingly large?
Oh, yes, very much. On the second level down, there's 7 rooms, and there are 2 sarcophagus there now remaining. But according to the original reports, there were 7 sarcophagus. Who took them, we're not sure, and how they got them out, we're not sure. But on the third level, there is 1 sarcophagus submerged underwater. And I'd like to talk about that one because it has a personal history for me. There was Dr. J.J. Hurtek and some associates were doing excavations in the Tomb of Osiris area in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And it was particularly one time in September of 1997, they made a remarkable discovery. They found a sarcophagus lid buried under the mud at the base of the stairway that goes down. And I did a lot of research on it, including researching Dr. Zahi Hawas's personal books on it that did show the drawings and that there was a sarcophagus there. But historians show that that sarcophagus lid was now over top of the sarcophagus under the water and that it had been moved. And I did a lot of research on that. But what I want to mention is that when they made the discovery of the sarcophagus lid under the mud at the stairway level, something happened. I've discussed it with some astrology people, and what I found was that for me personally, in September of 1997 is when I immediately overnight awoke to everything that I know about Egypt today. It was hard to explain. They found out that every single planet and asteroid was in my ascension astrological chart.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of my chart was completely blank except for the one house, the first house, and that everything was there. And that what we found out that anybody that may have that kind of astrological pattern, um, many of my friends woke up around that same time period and started having a great interest in Egypt. And I actually sat down the very next day after having um, a light ship appear, which I think was just an opening of my pineal gland.
Mm-hmm.
But I sat down, and as a civil engineer, site plan designer, and everything, I started drawing maps of the Giza Plateau from memory. And you couldn't find anything in a book. And in the 53 trips that I've been back to Egypt, I have verified every single thing that I drew on that very day. So that's kind of like where my information really came from.
Well, I truly believe in this day and age that when we wake up to wisdom that we've carried through time, that there's a reason, and part of one of the reasons, or maybe even the main reason, was that the consciousness of all of humanity was ready to receive the information and not think it was crazy.
Right. Yeah. It took a long time for many of us to wake up, but we had to wait for like what we're feeling now. The energy that's coming into the planet is helping us raise our own vibration. Yes.
Well, we're in that time frame where the planet and the cosmic progression of the equinoxes are all in sync, so the consciousness is expanded greatly, and people are able to retrieve information, and happily you have the kind of background that facilitated putting it down on paper.
Right.
I mean,
That's part of what I call my contract. I call it all my halls of record.
well, I truly believe we all carry our own hall of records, and it's just a
Yeah.
matter of getting to the point where we trust ourselves enough to open the door and receive the information that's there.
Yes.
Um, the fact that are there 7 chambers in the tomb of Osiris?
Okay. On the second level, there are 7 chambers, and on the third level, there's only 1 chamber. So with a
It,
sarcophagus in the middle, and a tunnel that leads out that has been explored by the Egyptians, and especially with the Japanese. And I have private research that shows like where that tunnel goes. And in my book that I'm going to be releasing sometime in the future, that I've been writing for a very long time, and the information given to me by the Japanese and in association with what the Egyptian authorities have released, we have found that there is a direct connection with the third level tomb of Osiris with the room inside the Great Pyramid.
Now, how deep do these chambers go? How far down? You spoke meters, but you're talking to somebody that thinks in feet
Yeah.
and yards.
Okay. 30 meters is 100 feet.
Oh, okay.
And some go a little bit deeper than that. The average underground tunnel network at Giza starts at about 30 meters, 100 to 125 feet underground.
And how many levels of, now I know the ground penetrating radar, it must have shown a tremendous network there. Was anything detected under the Sphinx itself?
I have seen some information that says that there was some anomalies there, but the Egyptians have not really released anything. What I found was that the control to do the testing only permitted them to do it in certain areas, and we found out that they would not allow them to do the ground penetrating radar like 360 degrees around the Sphinx.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. There are definitely places where they weren't allowed to utilize the ground penetrating radar. Do you have any ideas do you have any theories as to why that might have been?
Well, I know some people that know the tunnel entrance into the below the Sphinx, and that they have been in there, and so the Egyptians are very aware of what is where, and they have very tight controls to allow you to even go into those areas. When I tried to do some ground penetrating radar off the, away from the Sphinx across the street, it was absolutely forbidden. And I was able to get some because some other projects that were going on that I can't name, but they were approved SCA projects. I was able to get hold of their records, and they did show that there are a lot of anomalies all over the Giza Plateau, and specifically across the street from the Sphinx.
In your opinion, at this moment in time, what do you? These are chambers. These are tunnels. It's a labyrinth of sorts, from what I understand.
My understanding is that some of it is natural chambers. There are huge underground fissures. There's 3 fault lines that crisscross the Giza Plateau, and from these fault lines and fissures, smaller fissures expand off of them, and in time they were, in my understanding, man-made or enlarged, and connections made.
Well, in that case, wouldn't you think that the releasing of this information would bring more attention to Giza? I mean, I understand at first why they didn't want to release any of this information, because it destroyed the history books. And to be honest, I truly believe all our history books should be blown up and started again at this point in time. But yeah, I can think that it only must be that they don't want to destroy their tourism, and it would seem to me this would increase their tourism.
They're not interested in the tourists. They're interested in the black market items that are being sold. That's why they don't allow you to go into these places. Okay, it's black market.
Well, are these? See, my feeling, and I didn't get anything from your literature, but my feeling is we're not really talking, antiquities. We're talking things that are other than antiquities, that could be tools or even. It feels to me as though there's a whole sense of new information that could be enlightening and enhancing to the rest of the world, and yet it's being held back. Is that appropriate, or is that just weird?
No, that is absolutely 100% correct, but they don't want you to know that information because it would completely change. It would destroy religion as a start.
Well, it's about time that happened, actually.
Well, it is happening now with, our timeline, but there's too many hardcore people out there that, it would, it's the same thing as if the government was to say the UFOs exist, then we could say, yeah, we know they exist, but these people at this higher levels, they don't want the history of the world known, because we could say perhaps that, if we knew that we blew ourselves up 3 or 4 times, in the past, and that we're probably going to do it again. And they don't really want anybody to know that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess. It would seem to me that knowing that we've messed up that many times, it would make us a little more attentive to our behavior this lifetime. But it must be the way things are charted, because I mean, I'm not sure we're going to blow ourselves up again, but we may come close. But what fascinates me is that the Egypt that I studied as a child and then taught as a teacher and helped my son, swallow, just didn't exist. And there's so much more magic and mystery and I mean, sacred geometry that goes into all of this, and it should be taught in the schools. Kids should know about this.
That doesn't create money.
No, it creates wisdom, which is more important.
To you and me, but not to 90% of the planet. Okay, this time it's about money, and control. And so I firmly believe that withholding this information only makes you and I seek the truth ourselves on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
And that when enough people start doing that, then the consciousness changes enough, then maybe the values of our planet will be different, which I believe in 100 years it will be. But we have to do something now to at least get that started and let our children and grandchildren follow based on the wisdom that we give them and not taught in schools.
I totally agree with you. Now, you have created a guided tour map of the Giza Plateau.
Yes.
And this isn't, I mean, it's got how many? 32, 33 different sites on this map.
Yes.
So that these are where there are tombs, there are temples, there are places that are significant energetically. And this one map that you have here that has all of these on it, corresponding to star systems and stuff like that, to me would be a walk of ascension and evolution for anybody that decided to do this walk and stand in these places and draw the energy in and let it swallow them up, well, in a good way. And this would take a long time.
Well, I have key locations, and depending on how long you're going to be there. And I've been to Egypt 53 times, and I've stayed there for anywhere from 2 weeks to 5 months. And so I had a lot of time on my hands. And so what I wanted to do was to make a map available for you to return more than one time to Egypt, because if you have that that ability to be able to do that. But I used to teach meditation to the Egyptians while I was living there one time, especially for the 5 months. And every Friday, I would take the 25 people that were a part of the group. I would take them to a specific location on the Giza Plateau and have them sit down where I knew the portal energy was. And many people did that many times. And so I thought, if I could just make this book available, which is going to be on the internet here pretty soon, anybody can go there and they can go to a specific spot. It's identified. And then, if you know anything about astrology, you can just look at a map and follow the stars of Orion, and you're going to end up at the most key spots at Giza.
Well, let me tell you what I did with this. I took a couple of these spots, sort of figured GPS of them, went to Google Earth, sat with the Google Earth spot on it, got as close as I could, went into a meditation, and found the portal.
Exactly. Good for you. That's
so
purpose.
So
you don't have to go to Giza.
Right.
Exactly what you just said.
I mean, it seems to be this. People will think, oh yeah, I don't have the money to go to Egypt 53 times, and you don't have to, because it's right here. And if I don't know if you have GPSs for them, I just kind of felt around for energy and found it. But I've been doing this for a long time, so. So
and I do have GPS for a lot of them. Okay. But one thing you have to be careful of is, because of national security reasons, GPS is not correct at Giza. It's a national security thing. So what I decided to do was to give you a physical, something that you could physically see. If you zoom in on the Giza Plateau, I'm going to show you exactly where that point is. And then you'll be able to go there. And with your the unique thing of what you just said was, this is to help people take themselves to the next level, to be able to go there out of body, which most people can do that.
Oh, sure.
And you can find yourself there, and I've done it. I've woken up many times and being there and recognizing where I was at too. So this is kind of a skill that we would like people to be able to do. And so I have a website that's going to be opening called www.startombs.com. and it will be available in a couple of weeks. We're working it right now, and you will see the pictures that I have already sent to you with more information. And I want you to go into meditation, no matter where you're at on the world, and take yourself there. And that's really what it's all about.
And, is there a sequence that people should follow, or does it matter?
No, it's a calling.
Because what I see here is you've got 33, and 33 is, of course, the master number of completion.
Yes.
So,
I mean, my guidance was to give people 33 spots, and then they will resonate to where they need to go. I'll give you some history about it. And, if you're interested in the Pleiades, we can take you to the Pleiades. If you want interested in the heart of Orion, we can take you there, which is a very powerful spot, and that kind of a thing. So, yes, what resonates for you is what we want to do. And we're going to give you some guidelines and say, okay, and we're going to try and get people like you involved with this kind of a say, okay, here's, let's everybody, all of us focus on a particular day at a particular time, which a lot of metaphysical people have been doing with, with solstice and everything. You
sure.
say, I actually did that. I was at Giza around 2000 and I can't remember 6 or 7, and I was doing my research on the eastern side of the Great Pyramid, and all of a sudden I had a little knock from my guides and said, you finished for today, go to the front of the north side of the Great Pyramid. So, and I get that kind of intuition callings a lot. So I finished and I went to the front of the Great Pyramid, and there were 4 people standing back to back in the form of a cross, and they were all doing the Om. And I thought that was kind of cool because, I like that and I do that. So I kind of like walked up to them and I asked them, I said, that was very nice. Thank you. I really like that experience. What are you doing? And the person says, calling you. Which made it really personal. And I said, me? And they said, yes. And they gave me the history. They were all from Turkey and or in that somewhere in that area. And none of them spoke English except the tour guide. And there were 22 of them. And they said that they were told in one of their sessions back when in their meetings sometime earlier, that they were to go to Giza, be on the solstice, be in front of the Great Pyramid, do the Om, and somebody would come to them. And I did. And so the very next day was the summer 21st, very hot. And they said that you're supposed to take us somewhere. And so I took them up to what we call the Solar Cross, which is out beyond the third pyramid. And we sat there and everybody did a special meditation. I could only speak to the guide in English, and so he translated for everybody. So 11 people sat on the east side of this big shaft, and the other 11 people sat on the opposite side, each looking at each other eye to eye. And so I just told them, I said, it was high noon, it was very hot, and I said, okay, for 5 minutes, everybody focus on what's on the bottom of the pit. And everybody is to focus on that particular spot, and then at the end, tell everybody their experience. So when the 5 minutes was over, the first person started to speak, and of course they're talking in Arabic or whatever their language was. And of course, I didn't understand what they were saying. And everybody was kind of like laughing and oohing and awing. And the next person would say something. And I got this feeling something was really going on. So finally, the guide got to me and he says, okay, now tell us in English what you saw. And I told them, and everybody started crying because what I had seen, all the other 21 people had seen also the same vision. And it was the most powerful experience I had in all of Egypt. And so this is what we want to do again. See if we can get people to make this telepathic communication, which is going to help raise our vibration and maybe others around them.
Well,
So,
I have this radio show, and then I have another. I have another program that I can do radio shows from,
mhm,
and if you can get me the exact location so that I can really pinpoint it on Google Earth,
right.
I'll put out there and get people from all over to tune in and I'll lead them into a meditation, and we can do just exactly that with people from all over the world.
Super. Well, a couple of years ago, we created a map exactly like that, but I've updated it, so I've got to get with the engineer, and I'm going to try and have that available within a month. I'll get it.
Okay.
I'll get it
If
to
you
you.
if you can do that, I'll we'll do some experiments and we'll have people do exactly what you're saying, but we'll have them focusing on the spot in whatever their locality is on Google Earth
Okay.
and see what we get.
Okay. I have a bunch of GPS coordinates at the area surrounding the Sphinx, so I can get that to you right away, and we can zoom in and see if anybody wants to be able to find the halls of record, which are they are there physically.
That sounds like a plan to me. I think this would be fabulous because um, a long time, a couple of years ago, I did a spiritual development circle online, and I had 60 some people from all over the world sign up, and they all tuned in for that. And this would be even more spectacular. So, um, yeah, let's get something set up, and we'll if we don't do it on this radio station, we'll do it on Blog Talk Radio, and
Okay.
we'll correlate our findings and make sure you get them all, and we'll let you know when they're going to happen. So if you want to, you can sit in too.
Oh, certainly. I'll do that.
We're coming up on the top of the hour, and when we do, there will be music that plays, and we'll have a 5 minute break. And when we come back, I want to go into your geometric stuff too, because
Good.
that, that's almost as fascinating as it is as fascinating as all this, but it's just this is what really called my attention, and when I saw that it would pull you in if you gave it a chance.
Right.
That to me was amazing.
Super. Thank you. Okay. Well, just I'll wait for you to.
Oh no, you stay there and talk until don't go anywhere yet when the
I'm
music
not going anywhere.
starts. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
but I do want people to understand that the Giza Plateau we haven't even scratched the surface there.
No, we haven't.
And that there's so much going on there that we have yet to understand and let it trigger stuff within us. That it's so sad that the Egyptian authorities are reluctant to let people who have sincere integrity and desire to bring truth out in there, and it bothers me greatly.
Thank you.
I would imagine that well, it seems to me now it should be more open since Hawass is no longer there. Is it? Is there greater flexibility now?
Actually, I just came back 2 weeks ago from being there for 10 days, and it was tighter then than any time I've ever been there.
Okay.
There were thousands of people walking around, but my contacts that I had in the past were very difficult to work with because everything is hush hush right now. And the only thing that I can tell you is there is something very, very important going on at the Giza Plateau associated with a solar boat on the southwest corner of the Great Pyramid that the Japanese have been working on now for a long, long time. And I know that there's should be some kind of a release from the Egyptian authorities relatively soon about it. I know about it through my sources, and we might be able to talk about it on another time show.
There was also a box that had an energy around it as well.
Yes. Yes. I talked many times with Carrie Cassidy about that. Out of California, I got in trouble. So, yes, I
Okay,
can
we
tell
won't
you
talk about
that's
that.
correct. That's correct. Okay.
But all I'm saying is there is so much there that could be help to awakening and explaining and expanding the consciousness of everyone that again, it's a case very much like the UFOs. You know, the government steps in and doesn't want anybody to know about it because they'll lose control. And I do believe that on many different levels in many different places, that's what's happening. Those in control are losing it. People are waking up and saying, wait a minute.
Well, like I mentioned to you, if I've seen it, I can say that I know, and I can tell you that I have seen UFOs and they do exist.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
Yeah, yeah.
Me too.
But
So
it doesn't mean it unless you see one yourself.
no, you're absolutely right.
Right.
And what I love about it is the seeing of a UFO is an experience that breaks through a barrier of consciousness and lets you expand into a more cosmic understanding of what's out there.
Yes, on my very first visit to Egypt in 2003, when I went to walk into the Great Pyramid, I saw a UFO at Giza. And what I can tell you is that if you can raise your vibration above this frequencies that they're holding everybody in using fear tactics, if you can move yourself out of fear, this higher vibration, they're in front of your nose
Oh, yeah.
on another frequency.
In another dimension. I mean, that's
Well, yeah,
you know.
dimension and frequency, yeah, for me are the same, yeah.
Oh,
Correct.
okay.
They're right in front
Because
of your nose.
I keep telling people that these globes and everything are all interdimensional and they don't disappear. They just increase their frequency so we can't see them and they're into another dimension.
Right, and we'll talk about that, I think, next when we come back about some of the structures that I've built and we've seen.
Oh, yes.
We've
Yes.
seen them. Okay.
Yes, I am so fascinated by your structures that it's such a I understand that there is power in shape and there is power in they call it sacred geometry for a reason.
Right, correct. It is sacred.
Oh yeah. And when I did my cards, I was apparently tapping into the sacred geometry and didn't even realize it until after I was all done. I suppose if I had known about it.
What Mandela's do to you.
Yeah, no, they were. I'll tell you something. The 9 months that I painted, the deck of cards that I painted, I was on a high that was just so amazing. It was incredible. I think I survived on maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night, and I was more energized, more excited, more awake, more alert than ever before or since.
Well, I'm glad you got that much sleep because that's all I ever get now.
Well, it is, you know, at first you think, okay, there's something wrong with me. I don't need to sleep. I can't sleep. I feel like I should be up doing something. And no, I have to get 6 or 7 hours. And I didn't at that time frame.
Right.
And it was amazing. I never missed a Little League game. I didn't miss a day of work.
Yeah.
And I was sharp. I was, you know, I say I was higher than a kite, but I was fully functional. It was just that everything was so clear.
Right.
That, you know, it was, somebody said, oh, you're on adrenaline. And, you know, for 9 months I must have been then because it was amazing. Okay, we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Okay.
So Robert, we're going to shift slightly and move on to the other fascinating thing that you're doing, and it does correspond to your star maps to a great degree because the geometry, it was involved in all of those. You want to help to enlighten us about your geometric structures and buildings that you're doing?
Okay, thanks. I'm a master carpenter all my life. And it's a skill that I've had since I was a child. I started building geometric structures, basically pyramids, many years ago. My first one in 1998 in my backyard when I was living in Bedford, Virginia in the Blue Ridge Parkway area. And I built from pure instinct, um, the exact size of the missing capstone of the Great Pyramid. Um, I didn't know that at the time. I just started cutting wood and building it, and it seemed to fit a particular space in my backyard. And I did have some friends come afterwards, and they did measure it and analyze it, and then they gave me some books and data and said, "Do you know you just built a missing capstone?" When I did that, I was very much into meditation at that time, and I would sit out in the backyard in the Blue Ridge Parkway area, and just the silence was so silent that I was able to experience a lot of different things. And since that time, 1998, I've been building them everywhere I've lived. And in the past 5 years, we started building them. My wife is Polish, and we also live in Poland, in southwestern section of Poland. And I found a carpenter there that could meet the precision that I needed in order to build these geometric structures. And we started building them. And I had a good friend in Germany, and he had a carpenter. And so we were able to build a geometric structure that we call an icosahedron, which is one of the Platonic solids.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that the energy of the Platonic solid icosahedron was much more powerful than the pyramid itself. We started building them, and we were building them. We had a warehouse with open, the ceiling was like 10 meters, so it was tremendous. So we actually built the very first walk-in size icosahedron. We looked like dwarfs, tiny little people walking into it, because it was like 4 meters high, which is,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Okay. So, it was huge, and we found that some strange phenomena was going on in the area. Nobody could kind of understand it. So we decided we better stick with some smaller scale ones. So we built some that 2.5 meters, and we built about 4 or 5 of them. And one day, somebody decided just to, take some pictures. And when they took the pictures, there were hundreds of little white orbs everywhere. We were totally shocked. In the beginning, they just showed up in photographs. And so I just kept saying they were dust particles from in the air.
Yeah,
And,
sawdust.
yeah, sawdust, and, stuff like that. And so what happened was, we got wise to that. And so we started taking movie clips of them with the digital cameras. And we found out that these little white orbs were flying around. They weren't just, floating in the air. They were literally moving and multi directions. And it kind of like flew, we didn't know what to do. And so we just kept investigating, and more of them kept showing up. And I have pictures of them. They're on the website. That there are thousands of them, and nobody can understand, where they are. We put some of the structures outside, and at nighttime, and we were like, take a flash, and you could like see them. So I had to really do something to make myself believe that they were much more than just dust particles. So my wife is a massage therapist, and I built one of these small icosahedron units that fit in one of the bedroom areas with a massage table in the middle of it. And I was standing there, and somebody decided to take a little film clip of me for 10 or 15 seconds. And all of a sudden, my hand was like resting on the massage table. And all of a sudden, we saw in the picture, this white orb just came out of came out of thin air on the massage table, went up my right hand, up my right arm, up my neck, and out the top of my head, and disappeared. And we had that right on film. And then all of a sudden it started appearing with people. 2 people would be there, and 2 orbs would show up. And, I just thought, well, maybe it must be some kind of a higher vibrational aspect of ourselves on another level, showing us that they were real too. And so I can tell you that the units are now established, and we built one in Germany under very special conditions. And I can tell you that it is, and I'm going to use the word Stargate, whether people understand that or not. It's an interdimensional frequency shift from a 3D reality outside of the structure to walking inside the structure. We have been able to determine through some frequency stuff that it is 5D frequency vibration inside.
Now, are these on the website that's Pavilions?
Yes. Yeah, we have the three of them. You have www.puramis, it's PURAMIS .info, INFO, and .org, puramis.org. And we do show some of that information on those websites. And we have a brand new one coming out that's called pavilionsmartdesign.com. That's PAVILIONSMARTDESIGN.com. And those are huge. These are large buildings now.
Yeah.
Two, three, and the one that we are proposing is 7 stories. It will commission 2,500 people inside, and it is hotel, school, dance hall, yoga, you name it. And the officers in it are psychiatrists and stuff like this. And we know that we have tested, and we know that the energy dynamics inside these structures will alter you when you walk in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm creating my bread and breakfast unit now that we hope to have out this year is a 2.5 story unit that will have bedrooms and you name it inside, massage and spas and everything. And we're making it so that the people can live there for 4 to 5 days in a retreat type condition where you don't leave the building, and you will see a remarkable shift in yourself from the day one.
Have you checked the negative ions inside? Have you been able to check how, if there are more negative ions inside the units once you assemble them than outside?
That's what the orbs are.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there are graphic designs of pavilionsmartdesign.com. On
Yes.
that website, people can check them out there. They're so much more. Back in the 70s and 80s, a lot of us walked around with pyramids on our heads, and there was a thing, well, if you put a razor blade under the pyramid, it will never get dull, and if you put seeds under it, they'll grow better. And the structures that you're talking about seem to be more of a consciousness raising thing, but I would imagine that the same would be true of razor blades and seeds too.
Yeah, we do that. We have people that have built them, and you would grow tomatoes inside and outside, and there's a big difference between the production.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's very, very real. You have to be specific on the angle, because if you shift the angle, it's a different frequency. So getting that angle, and basically for me, finding a carpenter that could bring these precision angles together accurately and duplicate them, because in the icosahedron you have to build this 5-sided star, elevated star, and you have to have 12 of them, and you have to have them the exact distances apart in order to make that geometry. And we found that in the beginning the models weren't as pure as they are now. And so I've built dozens of them. We sell them internationally. I have them all over the world. And we have people that use them for meditation in many, many different modalities. I have a good friend in Spain, in Canary Islands, that does massage, and it's tripled his business. just the people just wanting to come back because of the significant difference between before and after. So,
Like,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
that's
can
work.
understand. Yeah, I can understand that because
Yeah.
what you do is you create a force field.
Yes. But we found that what happens for the force field for the average person using these things, that this energy field only is sustained for 2 to 3 days. We had one experience where my friend in Canary Islands said, okay, he charges €50 for a massage, and he has his standard doctor that kept coming all the time. And he said to the doctor, um, massage is free today. Then the guy's saying, oh, good, I'm, €50. And he says, but if the massage is better than normal, you give me what you think it's worth. And so the guy gave him, he got the massage, and the doctor gave him €100. And he saw him on the golf course 3 days later, and he says, I still have that energy.
Mm-hmm.
So what we decided to do was, I have the units. I have one in my garage now, and the people come. I have five, 6, 7 people coming every day, and they come like every other day, and I'm able to see aura, energy, feelings, and we do testing with the people. I have special equipment called BioWell and stuff, and we were able to test their chakras and their auras and many other areas.
Mm-hmm.
And we do a record on them, and it's amazing to see the shift in these people over 1, 2, 3, 4 months. They're completely different people.
Okay, now, one of the things that I've discovered in my travels through interviewing people and stuff is that people who have experienced UFOs or had near-death experiences or traumatic events that changed their lives usually have a shift in their consciousness towards um, being more loving, wanting to serve humanity, wanting to knowing that they have a calling, not knowing what it is, but there's an awakening of a higher level of consciousness in those circumstances. Do you get the same results from the iconahedron?
Icosahedron. Yes, exactly. And it's amazing to be able to see the shift in the expression of a person's face.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like little bubbles, kind of like floating around out there. Yes, I've seen it, and I've been doing this now for 4 years, these tests and everything, and we have the records on them. And it's amazing. It not only changes their lives, but it changes the people around them. I'd like to give you one example. I sold one of my units to some people here in Chicago area where I live, and it was a health food store type area, and she had people that would come and do meditations in one of the rooms. So I installed one of the units in her uh, store area. Now, this person that I don't want to mention a name, but she's kind of a difficult person to become friends with because she's just that kind of a personality. And, and we're friends, but, I really never could get like a good close feeling with her. And she would tell me that her neighbors wouldn't speak to her at all. And it was like a family feud. And so after we put this icosahedron in the unit, a week later, this person went outside and saw the next door neighbor, which is usually throwing darts at her and knives, smiled and said, "Hi, how are you doing?" And she came and she told me the story that she couldn't believe how it changed these other people. And what I told her was, well, that's very nice, but maybe you changed. And that
Yeah.
was the truth. She had changed so dramatically that the people didn't have a problem with her anymore.
Wow.
So it's more of a personal thing for you. And what happens is your reality changes and you think they are. But it's really
Well,
the shift in you is changing the world around you.
right. I tell everybody that you
Yeah,
create your own reality by your perception of it.
exactly.
So that,
And this actually does it without you even thinking. And, you know, it's kind of like a joke with some of the people. It says, I'm taking away your free will when you walk into that thing because you won't have one when you walk out. In the sense that you're going to completely change and you're going to do it whether you want to or not.
Be interesting to take a whole bunch of them and put prisoners in them that are, convicted of whatever.
We are exploring that. The Russians did that in Russia with some of their very high, what we call a Miro type pyramid, in which the base is much smaller than the comparison to the height. The height is very high.
Mm-hmm.
And they built these pyramids all over Russia, hundreds of them, and maybe 1,000. And they built them next to, right outside the prison facilities. And they actually did testing, and they said that all of the prisoners' personalities changed.
Wow.
Yeah. So what we found is these structures also work with the environment, okay, and the surrounding areas. And so I put one in. I sold one to a friend in Poland, and he had a restaurant business, and we put it outside, and it's just open framed, and he painted it white, and just passed it off as a geometric structure, and all of a sudden his business started doubling. And,
amazing.
And nobody could say that it was because of the structure. Maybe it was just a coincidence, but I've seen it happen so many times in so many places that I know that these structures create a very high level frequency, which is what the Great Pyramid did. And that was the start for many of us a long time ago. And that I actually have an engineering report out of California, UCLA, that did a energy measurement of the Great Pyramid, and they found that the energy was 7.44 miles in diameter. Let's see, no, 7.44 miles in radius surrounding.
Wow.
They could pick up the energy level that far out.
Well, that's 15 miles.
Yes, that's right. And if you think about it, why are there so many pyramids up and down the Nile? They're all interconnected.
Oh, yeah.
They're all interconnected, and you can go from one to another with scientific equipment, and you can test it and get the results. So we know that these units that we're building, and so I have to be very careful. We're getting ready to build one of the buildings. I'm trying to get the funding for it, and it's going to be a bread and breakfast area, and we know that we have to put it it can't be in a residential area with a bunch of houses around it, because first of all, it won't fit in with the building code, and that we want to put it out in nature, and then see what happens with the trees and foliage and plants and everything around it. So we're going to be doing a test for like 2 to 3 years.
Wow, that sounds phenomenal. I'm thinking about, my garden and my yard and everything, and I'm thinking, where the heck could I put one of these? And the only thing is, I'm in Connecticut, and where 3 seasons of the year, it might be a viable place to sit and meditate in, but forget the winter.
Yeah, well, I have the little units. They're only about 3.5 feet tall. And they're you can put them together and take them apart. And we made them for meditation. And I did one even smaller than that. They were only about 18 inches in diameter, and gave one to a friend. And she has small children, teenage type people. They're always fighting, and they're, how kids are, and arguing with each other. So she put one in the house, and she noticed that the mood of the children changed.
So they don't have to be in it. They just have to be around it.
No, yeah, that's right, around it. If you put a pyramid in your house, it's still affecting the area. If you sit inside it, you have more concentrated energy on your physical self. But what these structures do, and all the platonic solids do that, but on a different frequency level. We just found that the icosahedron was the most perfect one of all, because it has 12 apex points and 20 surfaces, and everything is an equilateral triangle. So everything is in perfect balance. And so when you step inside these things, you can literally feel that difference if you're sensitive enough. The units that we have, like the one in the garage, when the people would come, um, I did stress tests on them because they have special computer equipment, and these people are so stressed out that, it pegs the needle. And so I put them out in this unit, and these people fall asleep in 5 minutes. You have to wake them up an hour later.
Oh, wow.
And what's really interesting about it is the people ask me, how does it work? I said, I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to program you into mind control. I said, you tell me. And somebody would like go into it and they wouldn't say anything to me, but their knee, like their right knee, they having so much pain in their right knee. And people would come out and I said, the whole time I was in there, my right knee was like red hot. The rest of my body was okay. But the energy flows where it's needed if you don't get in the way.
Now, does it matter what these are made out of?
We found natural, all mine are made out of wood.
Mm-hmm.
We've made them out of natural materials. They can't be ferrous materials. We did try using some copper pipe, because that's what we built pyramids with and stuff.
Yeah.
They can be made out of anything that's not a ferrous material. Fiberglass, I have a guy in Canada, Vancouver, that's trying to mass produce these things, making them out of fiberglass units. So that we can ship them anywhere in the world, but it costs more to ship them than to build them.
Oh,
So,
wow.
it's kind of difficult. So I'm not in the business of trying to make money. We're in the business of experimentation. So I just found people around the world that want to build them and have them, made and do their own experiments. And then we communicate with each other and everybody's having the same results. So
Now,
really fun.
now I know that you have made them exact,
Mhm.
and you ship them to people who have to put them together. I
Right.
mean, is there any way, can you screw it up?
No. It's all the way it goes together is like a mortise and tenon, but it's with wooden pegs. So there's like 12 caps. They're 5-sided, penta caps. And then the wooden pieces, all the caps are the same, but the wooden pieces is what makes the height different. So you can make it anywhere from 1 foot in length to 5 foot in length. And like the one in the garage is like, I think they're like 40 inches for the wooden pieces, and the height is like 9 feet in the ceiling in my garage. So you can't mess them up. Everything's the same. Every single piece is the same. Pick up one and it just fits.
Can you what if you created one that you could suspend from the ceiling, or does it have to touch the ground?
It doesn't have to touch the ground, but my intuition tells me you've got to be grounded, so you better. And the one that we did in Germany, we actually buried. It was the outside unit was let me see, 4 meters in diameter, which is 12 feet. 12 feet no, it's more than that. It was like 20 feet in diameter, and we buried 1/3 of it in the ground. We actually dug a hole, stuck it in the ground, and so that it was totally grounded. But we had a crystal pit in the middle of it.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and it was so powerful that you walk into this thing and your hair would stand straight up almost, but not literally, but on the hair on your arms do.
Wow.
You can feel it. I don't know, maybe it's static electricity or something, but when you stand outside the unit, like in the movie Stargate, and you stand outside the unit, and it's all open frame, it's not solid, everything's wide open, and you stand and you put your hand through the doorway, you can feel a difference in temperature inside and outside, and it's all open. And I mean, I've had dozens of people prove that. It was fascinating.
It's interesting because the feeling that you're talking about, my late husband and I did a documentary on the stone chambers that are here in
Hmm.
Connecticut.
Hmm.
And the feeling was very similar to what you're explaining when we would go into these chambers they were all stones,
Right.
and and nobody knows who created them, but there was a sense of peace and tranquility. There was an energetic shift.
Right.
In many cases, there was even a magnetic anomaly at the entranceway of some sort, and
Exactly.
it feels like it's the same kind of feeling. Um, and I could see how it would be so healing, and it's just that people have to have the room to put one of these things. So
Exactly. Well, that's why I made these units any size, available. And the thing is, it's just the shipping cost is rather expensive because they're kind of heavy. But
mhm.
we're working on it to get it out there. And so what I decided to do was to work with building these retreat centers, like into a bed and breakfast area where the people can actually come to them rather than to ship them and send them to their own house. I mean, I have several dozen of them everywhere with people doing that, but we're now shifting with the centers where we really want the people to come like as couples, as husband and wife, or partners, ship and go to these units. And we also offer other things like the right foods to eat and stuff like that, which is very difficult for me.
Mm,
So,
yes.
everybody wants me to be a vegetarian, but I have a little hard time with that. But uh,
Well, hey.
my energy level seems to be, my consciousness seems to be okay. So it's okay for
Yeah.
me. Okay, for me. I did live with some groups that were all total vegetarians for like 3 or 4 months at one time, but I never told anybody that I snuck out to McDonald's at night.
Well, I know that sometimes when I've been doing a lot of spiritual work and 12 or 15 hours of it, people will say to me, "Aren't you tired?" And it's like, how can I be tired when I've been channeling for 12 or 15 hours? I,
Exactly.
I need greasy food to get me down off the ceiling.
That's right.
And
Scrape me off the walls.
yeah, no,
That's right.
it's such a high when you get going in this energy. And I mean, for an author or something like that, what a great way to create an energy where you really literally have the doorway to everything that you are and can be open up to you to be able to draw information from a place that's cosmic to
Yeah.
to write. I mean, that to me would be phenomenal. I mean, can you imagine? Now, Ernest Hemingway stood at his dresser and his typewriter was on top of his dresser, and he stood there 8 hours a day, whether he had a book in process or not. He was just there. Imagine if he'd been standing inside one of these things, what he could have done.
Yes, I can imagine that. Yes, it's totally phenomenal. One thing I didn't tell you was that if you get a chance to look at the websites, you'll notice these things are built inside pyramids also.
I did see that. I
Yeah,
did see that.
and there is a difference between inside a pyramid and not. And we actually did a study, an energy study, calling BG3, which is um, a special kind of energy level. And we found that if you take the measurement of a pyramid, you will get a certain number, like from 0 to 10. And we did the pyramid, and then we did the icosahedron separate. And the icosahedron energy output was greater than the Great Pyramid, Cheops Pyramid uh, design. And then we found when we put both of them inside, it went to 10.
Hmm.
It maxed out. So we did find that the combination of geometric structures within each other. I'm working one right now where we even have a what I call a hypercube inside this one that I have right now, and I'm expecting to be able to levitate any day now.
Well, I could see that, but I think what you're doing is creating a Stargate. And
Yes.
I don't know how many different structures you have to layer, but that would make total sense to me that there will come a time where you have enough so that the frequency generated would be able to take you to another dimension or another time.
Yeah. Um, yes, they do. I have, but I only have to tell people that you won't believe it unless you do it yourself.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well,
I can say I've done it, and I've known that I've done it. It's a very awesome experience. It's something you can't even explain to somebody unless they've done it.
mm-hmm.
Okay? And so I'm trying to find people that'll go do it, and so we can talk about it.
Well, it's while I'm a medium and I talk to people on the other side,
Yeah.
and I do a lot of this stuff, until I actually experienced it, I didn't believe it was possible. And
Yes.
the same thing with channeling and forecasting stuff that's going to come. Every
Yeah.
now and then I will get something and I will call a couple people, say, look, I know this sounds phenomenal, but I have to tell somebody just in case
Right.
it's real.
Yeah.
And I can say, well, you know, not I knew that, but I told some people that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in 2004, I was engineer working in the Bethesda, Maryland area near Washington, D.C. And I decided to build one of these structures all out of copper water pipe, copper tubing. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was a multi-dimensional type thing that you could sit in and meditate in. And I went out, it was 50 miles due west of Washington, D.C. in a horse farm in the middle of the country with, nothing around me except horses.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that I was going to put this in this person's backyard, and they left and just left me alone. And I went out and I had built a special device that was actually made out of 13 Cheops. It was 4 different sizes of pyramids, all interlocked within each other. It was a Stargate, and so I locked it into position in the apex of this pyramid that I was in, and within 5 minutes, the military had sent a black ops helicopter to the site, wanting to know what was creating this frequency output. And I would kind of like wave to them, and they were all taking pictures and stuff. And I'm going like, "Hi, how you doing?" The government's followed me for many, many years. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and right after that, I thought that was kind of nice little experience. I know that it has some kind of a frequency output, but 2 hours later, while I was sitting there, a UFO showed up. So they got my frequency. So what actually happens, I think, that I've been able to gather is that what happens is we actually raise our vibration, and when we raise our vibration, we're able to see these other dimensional uh, ships.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I saw was actually a light ship. It was not a military UFO flying saucer. It was actually a light ship that had showed up. So it had to have done something to my frequency. That's when I really started back in 2004 having those kind of experiences. And so I build them all the time now just to have fun.
Well, yeah, I think that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think that it's supposed to be easy and isn't this cool and want to try it.
Yeah.
Instead of telling somebody this is going to change your life forever, which
Right.
nobody believes.
No.
And it's really amazing when you have something like that can energetically change a person, but
Yeah. Even if it's just for the moment, you feel the difference. You
mm-hmm.
feel something different happen. You can't explain it until it happens so many times that you kind of get used to it. I can say that when I first got started on this stuff, I did have visitors from another dimension. I had 3 of them show up one time, and I was so scared I didn't want nothing to do with it and closed the portals for a long time. But these things do open these gates, and so you do have to be prepared. And I'm going to tell you the thing that I've had to learn personally for me, you have to stay in a state of a loving type frequency. You can't be afraid, because if you're afraid, nothing happens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for people to get beyond that level, the average person walking down the street is not there. Okay. So
Hmm.
we just kind of like put this thing out, and then people come from all over the planet to these units and test them out, and then we get testimonials out of them. But we're not in the business of trying to sell these things. We're trying to make them available uh, in the near future, where people can go to them. We want to put these centers internationally, and I'm hoping that we'll get one in the. We're looking in Washington D.C. area. It's either going to be in Washington D.C. area or in around Tampa, Florida, and I'm trying to get one here in Chicago. And we'd like to try and get someplace, like the places like out at Sedona or in California. So we're trying to make contact with people to see if they want to get involved with building these structures, and go from there.
Well, it's sort of like Field of Dreams. If you
Oh
build
yeah.
it, they will come.
Oh, I built it and they did come.
Yeah. Well, no, I have found in many cases that um, sometimes you get in the field that I'm in and that you're in, although they may not be exactly the same, they are similar.
Hmm.
That um, I don't worry about clients per
Hmm.
se. I
No.
just know that people will come to me or be drawn to me, or and 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 especially with my website. Now the website is a teaching website,
Yes.
and I just put the information out there, and I mean it's I think, was it last month, over 100,000 pages on my website were read.
Hmm.
Now somebody's reading it.
Yeah.
um so,
Good.
so
Well, what I found is that like kind draws like kind.
that's true.
Okay. So all you have to do is raise your vibration, and you will meet the others that are out there that have that vibration or need to go to that level. And I always tell, a teacher and the student are one and the same.
Hmm.
Um, and that we're always trying to be the student to learn and seek, more and more information. So people like you, they're out there. Okay. And that's what's changing the consciousness. Is it's slow, but it's
No, you're absolutely right. And my even though I am a teacher by trade, my
mhm.
philosophy is that the only reason I do these interviews and stuff like that is because I'm learning.
Yes.
And if you aren't constantly learning,
Mhm.
then you have nothing to teach.
Well, that's
And
what we're here for, is to
I
learn.
know.
People don't go there. They're not here to learn. They're here to repeat what somebody told them.
Yeah, and that,
Yeah.
but that's the most fun of all of this, when you can
Yeah.
look at what you've been taught and say, oh, that's a pile of garbage. That can't possibly be true. And then you seek out and you find other things that are more comfortable and more of a truthfulness to you, and so you grow and you expand, and they're wonderful stepping stones. And every time I have gotten to a place where it's, God, this is boring. I now I've touched it all, and then suddenly a door opens and it's like a whole new dimension of material to gather up and to,
Yeah.
it's so cool, because
Yeah.
the minute you think, okay, so everything's filed away and that was fun, but now what do I do next? And it's like I hear laughter and it's like, oh, you aren't even started yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so much into the letting go that I can't even remember what I was letting go of.
That's a good thing, because you make room for so much more.
Yeah, yeah. My philosophy is to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So, you
Well,
know,
it's like, but before you came on, I said that history is sort of like an onion, that there are so many different levels of it, that
yeah,
you can't just stick with the crunchy stuff on the outside. You have to keep going till you get to the really good stuff. And the center just keeps expanding so that you never get to the middle, which is fabulous.
yeah, it's infinite.
Well,
It's
if you knew it all, what the heck is the purpose of this lifetime?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I do know it all, but I'm learning that I didn't know everything.
Yeah, no, that's
That's what
and
I say.
my phrase that I tell everybody is I know a little bit about everything, just enough to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, I say I know a little bit about enough just to be dangerous. Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, just out of curiosity, where do you put the age of the Great Pyramid? And is that the youngest thing showing? Are the different structures beneath it even older?
It's been rebuilt many, many times. It was built eons ago. We can't, our consciousness can't go to that level until we can raise our level to that.
Hmm.
It's so old, but it's from different levels of vibration. Because we're in 3D right now, we can put a timeline, whether you want to take the Robert Bivol 10,000, which has now been proven to be 22,000 or 36,000,
Yeah.
type thing. What I see it is, it's a consciousness type machine that changes with consciousness. So it was in the beginning still there, but it changed when the consciousness changed. But I think the megalithic time period, when many of the stone type structures built all around the world, and they all have similarities.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
okay, and they were all built in a timeline that appears in my timeline around the beginning of the Taurus bull cult, around 4500 BC. Which I say is the last consciousness appearance of the Great Pyramid.
Okay.
So, my dating is 4,500, based on some information that I've been able to prove. I'm getting ready to release an article right now. I just put it out on Facebook that, there are underground chambers in all three pyramids, and all three pyramids are built on top of each other. So there's more. It's like an onion. There's more units inside.
Hmm.
And I am aware, because of my contacts, that I know, and I can tell you for a fact, there are more rooms inside the Great Pyramid than they tell you about. And
Oh, for sure.
those rooms do have hieroglyphics. In fact, I know the person that went into the room, and they took a piece of the paint off the wall, which was DNA from the plant that they, made the dye to do the paintings, and that dye was carbon dated over 10,000 years old
I can believe that.
in that particular room that's not open to the public.
I just, it's so sad that they're keeping so much from the public, but then who isn't keeping a great deal from the public? So,
Yeah. Well, at Giza, the main reason why the things are so closed to the public is because they get a lot of money from people that get to go to these places that are not open to the public. And then you have to be very quiet and silent that you were there. I know people who have been inside the room in the Sphinx, and I know that it exists. Okay.
yeah, well, I've never doubted that.
Yeah, the only thing is, everything is pure speculation unless it can go publicly, announced by an Egyptian authority. And of course, my biggest thing right now is how they just found the largest statue of Ramses with a with a
Oh, it'll
huge
long. Yes.
cone head. Okay. Well, and now they're just passing it off that they were trying to imitate the gods. Well,
Oh,
I'm going to tell you, Ramses ruled for 60 years, and he was a god,
oh, I absolutely.
alien type person.
Well, yes, and
Many of them were. Akhenaten was. We know
a-
that.
absolutely.
Uh,
And
King
the
Tut
the
was.
the
All of
only
his
reason
children were.
the only reason that the crown is the way it is was to accommodate their
Well,
heads.
that was to hide. It was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was to hide it. Exactly. They changed the royal crown from an open crown to the one with a little globe on the top. So yeah, the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. So yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
Akhenaten
And
was ahead of his time.
well, aren't we all? You know,
Hopefully, hopefully.
we are. That's who we are. We are ahead of our time, hoping that everybody will catch up.
But yeah, I well, and going back to the Sphinx. Now, I have looked at that statue for probably 60 years now,
Hmm.
and I keep saying, how can anybody think that there wasn't another head on that animal originally?
Well, I think the latest theory is out right now is the face of Khufu. Okay, but built by his son or carved by his son. And I've seen people say that it was Anubis and, other figureheads that it was a lion.
Yeah,
Uh, I think that the message of the Sphinx is what's important, and that is that it shows that man is a god, like being.
I'll go with that. But
Okay,
the
but
Egyptians, the Egyptians were
that was their.
so
I'm sorry.
they were so into meticulous
Perfect.
proportions.
Yes, yes.
To have that head out of proportion with the body doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's like the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid shifted. I mean, the Sphinx was around before the Great Pyramid. We know that now.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I don't want to say we would know that now, but the dating shows that it the Great Pyramid that we see today. It exists today. That the Sphinx existed before that one, but
yes,
to say that it existed before the one that was before that, there's no way of proving that. Uh, Although we do have the scans, the GPR scans, the new um, uh, heat source scans that they have now, which has come out that they have found another room, but they won't tell you where it's at. Um, stuff like that.
yeah. No, it's just the truth is eventually going to come out. I mean, it's inevitable. And when that happens, then we'll find out that there are even more secrets that we don't know.
Yeah.
Um, it's very
Well,
disturbing.
yeah. Well, take it on a personal level that when you finally get to the total truth yourself, without worrying about anybody else's believing it or not, but that you know that it's truth. That's what it's all about for me. That
Absolutely.
you absolutely, without 100% doubt. I was at 99.9% for so long that when I reached the 100% of total um, balance and not doubting anything, when something happens, I don't doubt it anymore. And I have been able to manifest my reality exactly the way that I want it to be. I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay. And people like you. And that's who I want to talk to. I'm not really worried about what anybody else out there is saying or thinking. And I used to worry because people tried to discredit me because I knew too much and they tried to discredit me. National Geographic's tried to discredit me on the research that I said in 2006 that in the future they were going to discover something in a particular spot. And in 2009, Japanese dug there and found it. So when you're totally know and have total belief in yourself, that's when everything changes.
Absolutely. Bill, thank you so much. I
Okay.
am going to call you and we're going to do this again.
Okay. Super. Thank you.
Good night now.
Good night. Bye bye.
Bye bye.